Kia ora, my name is Simona Turin. I am currently a director on Fidelity Life board, Loaded and Hector. And I'm also a CEO at AcademyEX.
And so we're going to talk about the challenges and the benefits of having somebody who is both an executive and a director.
Yes.
Hi, welcome to Governance Bites. My name is Mark Banicevich, and as you just heard today, I'm really happy to spend time with Simona Turin. Simona, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
You have had an extensive executive career, essentially through a technology angle, right? You've worked at Xero, you've worked at Air New Zealand, you're now CEO of AcademyEX, and you're also, as you said a moment ago, on 3 boards, one of which is Fidelity Life, and I work in the life insurance industry. As somebody who is currently an executive and also a director, although on different companies, what advantages does that bring to the boardroom?
I think what I have is real-time pulse and insight into some of the challenges that execs and CEOs deal with, including our current economy and government changes, etc., but also some of the challenges of implementing AI across organization and what does it mean and the governance around that. So really understanding the CEOs and the executive team, an ability for me to work closely from product teams to marketing teams to CEOs, kind of have these deep conversations when needed.
Right, okay. And you'd also, as you're implying, have a good understanding of contemporary issues because you're dealing with them in your executive roles.
Yes, exactly.
What challenges does it bring around? You know, CEO role is a full-time role, and then having 3 or 4 boards on top of that. What challenges does that bring to fitting things into your life?
So one, I'm making sure that I'm really carving out the board roles versus my CEO roles, having a very strong executive team here at AcademyEX, but also, I'm able to really consume information from the board papers and the experience in a very efficient way. So, how I read board papers, I sort of have prioritization, how I skim through them initially, then prioritize, then go deep dive, etc. So I'm very systematic about how I approach one information I take, but then prepare with questions and take notes, etc.
So it's about very effective time management and in doing so in particular, the method that you use to digest the information being very effective and very efficient in doing that. You're also, running AcademyEX as an organisation that's around educating people in the technology sphere. And then you go to the other extreme and you're on the board of a life insurance company. Your education or your role in the board isn't just around reading the board papers, it's about understanding what's happening in the industry. How do you find time and how do you keep on top of the trends and the issues that are happening in the industry outside of the boardroom while being a CEO?
So you see, it's kind of my natural DNA. I am a curious person and I'm constantly learning either through podcasts or reading a lot, but also hands-on. I'll be the one setting up my own GPT and trying things out. When needed, once in a while I attend our courses, or we have here right now, as I mentioned to you before we started, AI pop-up lab. And so ability to work with small businesses and show them how to use AI tools. So I tend to be kind of a balance of reading a lot, listening to podcasts, and being always very curious, but also trying things myself. Right. Yeah, so I think I bring that different perspective probably to the board.
We'll have to talk to you offline about creating your own GPT. That sounds very interesting. Now, is there any challenge that you find, because in your executive role, you're very much in the detail of running the organisation, managing your executive team, and in the board, you've got to elevate yourself above that and be about questioning and overseeing the entity. Do you ever find any challenge not getting into the detail when you're in the boardroom, and how do you deal with that?
It's definitely sometimes a challenge. You kind of have to catch yourself when you want to go into details. But I find that's a great challenge from my personal growth, because I need to think about the questions I'm asking. It's much more at the board level. It's about the questions you're asking and the information you get, and kind of how you have that more long-term balance of long-term with execution, because what you don't want is to be way in the strategy and it's sort of disconnected from the reality of execution. And so I think I kind of thinking about that versus and bringing a little bit of my perspective of day-to-day execution. So definitely something that I constantly developing about how to ask the right questions and think of that long-term and short-term balance.
Right. Well, that actually raises the point that you're in a boardroom where other people on the board will be potentially a little bit greyer in here, and be focused on director positions and not potentially working directly in businesses anymore. So just doing governance roles. Do you think there is any disadvantage in having a portfolio of governance roles and not working in a company versus the contemporary understanding that you bring? And so, I guess we'll start with that question. Is there an advantage, or is there a disadvantage to being purely a director?
So first of all, I definitely learn a lot from the governance perspective from professional directors, and I really enjoy seeing, being part of a board. I think the risk that some of the professional directors that don't have executive role for a number of years have is the question you asked me is, how do you keep up with what's going on? How do you understand the pain points that happening deep in the company? Kind of really relating that and solutioning that potentially at the board level, or even challenging the strategy. I think it requires a certain discipline on everyone's part to try things themselves or being more hands-on.
And I would suspect then that one of the ways you could overcome that is by having some diversity in the boardroom, having some experienced directors. As you say, you're learning a lot from those experienced directors, but also having some younger people that are closer to their executive career or still in their executive career can bring that balance to have the understanding of the contemporary issues, and probably a little bit also more empathy towards the executive team themselves and what they're going through.
Yes, absolutely. I think that a diversity to the board is something that I'm really focused, and so when I join the board, I really want to understand what value do I bring, what perspective they're looking for me to bring in order to really find that balance as a board together.
Right. Okay. One final question for you then. In your time as a director, what's the best advice you've received from another director?
There are, if I may, there are two actually.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
One is the word we, really focusing on the board as a team, as how we work together, how do we collaborate, how do we align on strategy. Because the last thing we want is, as a board, to provide a direction to executive team that misaligned and really confusing. So that's the first one, and really focus on that. The second one is not focusing on trivial things. It's very easy, I think, for all of us in life and in business to focus on trivial things and forget the most impactful. So when I enter the boardroom, I often think about what is the most impactful decision or discussion we'll have today at the board that will create that impact for executive team and the business. And that's a key.
That's a really great piece of advice, and one that hasn't arisen before, because I always ask that question in these conversations, and there's some themes that are coming through that are quite common, and this is a new one. So thank you very much, Simona. That was really interesting. Thank you very much for your time today. I'll look forward to catching up again soon, and see you next episode.
Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you for watching this episode of Governance Bites. We have more episodes on YouTube and your favourite podcast channel, where I interview directors and experts on various topics relating to boards of directors and governance. We'd love to see you back, and please like, subscribe, and share the videos and podcasts.